Hello, candle lovers! Thank you for tuning in to me today. My name is Greg, and this is all Aboot Candles. Happy Sunday, everyone. Every Sunday, I like to do the weekly wax wrap-up. This is when I go through all of the candles that I've finished burning recently, talk about how they smelled, how they performed, all of that good stuff. At the end of this video, I'm going to sort of give my closing thoughts and remarks on how Candle Day 2025 went for me. Let me know in the comments below how it was for you. Quite a few candles to get through this week. Mostly Bath & Body Works and Goose Creek stuff. Just to let you know, I do mark all of my videos with chapters, so if you want to skip ahead to whatever parts of this video are the most interesting to you, please feel free to do that. Let's start things off here with Santa's Milk and Cookies from Bath & Body Works. I can't say I was a huge fan of the packaging on this collection with the postcards, the kind of busy postcard design in the middle there. I feel like we've been getting a lot of like postage stamp and postcard stuff from the candle companies lately. Not just Bath & Body Works, but other companies as well. I'm just kind of over it. You guys know, I mean, my taste preferences when it comes to candle design is usually just the more simple, the better. But I did like the red wraparound on here and the shade of the red. It looked really pretty when it was burning. What does this say? It says special gift and wishing you holidays that are merry and bright. Of course, up here in Canada, we get the English and the French. I really did like the lid on this collection though. This white lid I thought added a really nice touch to these candles. And I really liked Santa's Milk and Cookies, which is probably not a huge surprise when it comes to gourmand fragrances. What I tend to like is, once again, the more simple, the better. I really like just a good, straightforward, like vanilla bakery gourmand fragrance, and that's absolutely what this was. The scent notes on here say fresh sugar cookies and a warm glass of milk sat by the fireplace on Christmas Eve. Aww. I liked this quite a bit, and this candle was nice and strong too. It is a fairly straightforward sort of sugar cookie vibe here. There is quite a bit of a milky or a lactonic note, but it doesn't go into like a sour milk territory for me. I think that lactonic notes in candles often come across as sour to a lot of people. I didn't pick up on a sour vibe from this one. Not too long ago, maybe like 3 years ago or so, there was a candle that came out called Hometown Sugar Cookies, and that definitely had a lactonic note in it that leaned a little bit on the sour side, but this one didn't. This was just a really good, like smooth, starchy bakery fragrance that I really, really enjoyed. It's not super highly pitched. I'd actually say it's a little bit lower in the fragrance register, a really sort of deep bakery component in there with a considerable amount of vanilla. There is a nice smoothness to the fragrance. However, the fragrance does have that slightly kind of granulated, sugary texture to it, which definitely sort of invokes, you know, like a sugar cookie. I think this candle was aptly named. I think that a lot of people smelling this candle without knowing what it was called would call this candle Milk and Cookies, and it smells really good. It smells really delicious and tasty, and I enjoyed it quite a bit actually, and I thought that this candle performed really well too. I burned it all the way down until there was like nothing left there really. A little bit of discoloration at the very end there, but I didn't notice that happening, you know, for most of this candle. It was just that last burn at the bottom where things got a little bit dark and discolored. I don't think this candle ever gave me issues with dudding out or itty bitty wicks and teeny tiny flames. I do think that there were a couple of burns in in the mid-range here that were a little bit lackluster. You know, like it kind of slowed down a little bit, but it wasn't like a full-blown dud out itty bitty wicks teeny tiny flame situation. And in my more open area, I'd say that this was a very solid like 6 or a 6.5 for strength and throw, which is pretty good for my more open space. I never put this candle in the bedroom because this just isn't a bedroom fragrance for me, but I bet in my bedroom this would have gotten up to like a 7 for strength and throw. Not bad at all. I was actually really happy with this candle. I do think that I would repurchase it, and I have no reason not to recommend it to you. This is really a type of candle that I would burn this time of year. Just a nice sort of cozy, straightforward bakery fragrance. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Moving on, I finished up Mrs. Claus's Cocktails. This was a new fragrance to Bath & Body Works this Christmas. Oh, sorry, it's just called Mrs. Claus's Cocktail. She just has one, not multiple. You know what? I bet you Mrs. Claus likes to have multiple cocktails around this time of year. Can't say I was a huge fan of the packaging on this collection either. You know, it's nice enough, but I don't know, something about it it kind of misses the mark for me a little. There's quite a bit going on in here with like hot chocolate and a martini shaker and presents and a candy cane martini and all kinds of stuff going on. I liked the color of the wax. I thought it was a really pretty wax. It looks a little bit discolored now, so you're not really seeing the nice, full, bright pink effect that it had originally. The scent notes on here are sparkling cranberry, pomegranate juice, and a frosted citrus twist. This is not usually the type of candle that I would gravitate towards, but I actually kind of like this one. You know, I'd say that my least favorite fragrances from Bath & Body Works tend to be like effervescent, drink, fruity fragrances. I think my least favorite fragrance from BBW is probably bubbly rosé. Champagne Toast is up there as well. This reminds me a little bit of Bright Christmas Morning. You know, Bath & Body Works, they're always going to try to give us different types of fragrances all year long, and they want to be able to give us some bright, fruity fragrances in the wintertime. So they come up with a concept. It's Mrs. Claus's Cocktail, and they add a fruit in there that is somewhat seasonal. In this case, it's sparkling cranberry with pomegranate and a citrus twist. Reminds me a little bit of a sort of a more berried version of Bright Christmas Morning with the cranberry in here, I think is what sets it apart the most. And I actually think that Bath & Body Works has done a decent job with their sort of fruity festive fragrances, like some of the newer ones. I actually think Bright Christmas Morning is pretty good, and I liked Mrs. Claus's Cocktail all right as well. Not exactly like running out to repurchase it or anything, but it does have a really nice and fairly authentic, it's like a bright, fruity vibe to it. I like the cranberry note in here. It does lean a little bit sweeter than I generally like my fruit fragrances to be. The types of fruit fragrances that I really like are like sort of rich, jammy, like berry fragrances. I love berry fragrances that have a little bit of wine happening in them, but this is really a fairly bright, fruity drink, but there's something about it that just smells incredibly fresh that I really enjoyed, and I think it's that citrus twist. I'd say the citrus twist is probably like lemon and orange. I don't feel like I pick up on lime in here. I think there's like a lemon and an orange vibe alongside that pomegranate and the cranberry. I also think the pomegranate note in here gives it a bit of an interesting and more sort of unique vibe as well. It's a very top-heavy fragrance. It's quite high in the fragrance register, and it definitely has that bright, citrusy, crunchy, juicy kind of vibe to it. But there's something about this one that just smelled really fresh to me. And so I ended up liking it quite a bit more than I thought that I would. And this candle also performed pretty nicely as well. I burned this all the way down till there was like nothing left on there. And the wax, like I said earlier, it was a really nice, pretty, like bright pink color. So just a little bit of discoloration at the end there, but no real dirtiness or nastiness happening on the burn here. I feel like it burned pretty nicely from start to finish, but same thing with Santa's Milk and Cookies. I think there were a couple of burns in the mid-range that were a little bit lackluster without being like full-blown dud-out itty-bitty wicks, teeny tiny flames, but a couple more lackluster burns which just fixed themselves if you just let it sort of ride it out. It eventually corrected itself, so no big complaints there. I'd say that the strength and the throw on this was probably like a 5.5 to a 6 in my more open space. Once again, not a fragrance that I would put in my bedroom, but in the open area, it was definitely like detectable. It wasn't super strong, but I could tell that it was there, and I wouldn't really have wanted this fragrance in particular to have been a super strong one. So I was overall happy with the way that it performed. I'm not entirely convinced that I would repurchase this. I was happy to have experienced it once, but it's probably a one and done for me. Would I recommend this? I'm not sure. I do think it's quite similar to Bright Christmas Morning, except Bright Christmas Morning I think has slightly better strength and throw, so it's up to you, obviously. Moving on, I finished Bowties and Bourbon from Bath and Body Works. I actually really liked the packaging on this collection. This sort of weird like white barn collection that had 3 different candles in it. It also had vanilla birch and I think spiced apple toddy or something similar to that. But the really interesting thing about this collection and what kind of surprised me about the packaging on here was that on the inside there's a really gorgeous sort of tree pattern happening. And so when this candle was burning, it was sort of glowing from the inside, and so this pattern on the inside would light up and it would shine through the label so you could see it on the outside of the vessel, which I thought was actually like a really interesting, very pretty, and kind of thoughtful little design trick. The vanilla birch candle in this collection also just looked gorgeous when it was burning because the vanilla birch candle had a little bit of a lighter coloring to it, and so it really, the patterns on the inside really shone through on that one. Yeah, I think this is a really lovely, sophisticated looking collection, and I liked this Bowties and Bourbon fragrance. The scent notes on it say hint of bourbon, fresh bergamot, and a splash of citrus. And this is a very cologne forward candle. This is a very sort of fairly masculine cologne vibe. A mandel is what I sometimes refer to candles that smell like this. This could absolutely be bottled up and sold as a cologne. And in fact, I think this has come out in men's body care before at Bath and Body Works. Maybe don't quote me on that, but I believe that it has. It certainly smells like something that would be in the men's collection at Bath and Body Works. It is nice. It doesn't have a super boozy component to it, but you do get a little bit of that sort of bourbon, that's kind of a deep bourbon, a smoky, woodsy bourbon sort of fragrance note. Bergamot and citrus, though, is really standing out in this fragrance. It is quite zesty, and the bergamot note in here really is that sort of traditional Italian bergamot men's cologne kind of vibe. I think that it's nicely balanced overall, though, with the citrus on top, the bergamot, and then in the middle to the base of the fragrance, it is a little bit richer. You pick up on the smokiness and the woodsiness of that bourbon note. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a nicely balanced fragrance. I'm not like over the moon about it. Once again, not running out to buy myself another one immediately, but I really did enjoy burning it. And this was a beautiful burn as well. I burned it all the way down there till I could see the wick nickels. Look at how clean the wax is at the end there. And there's like no sooting or dirtiness or any marks around the side of the vessel. This candle never dudded out. It never even had lackluster burns on it. It was always burning really, really nicely, giving you deep, even wax pools right away and projecting the fragrance. This burned wonderfully. And like I said, it just looked beautiful when it was lit up, and that pattern on the inside was sort of shining through the wraparound. Really, really pretty. Strength and throw was pretty good on this. I'd say in my more open space, it was getting to like a 6 probably. I actually did burn this in my bedroom quite a bit. I'd say it was about a 6.5 or a 7 in there. And yeah, it mostly became a bedroom candle for me, and I was really happy with how it performed in there. I do think I'll repurchase this one. You know, I didn't actually get one at Candle Day yesterday. I was thinking about getting another. It came out in a collection that also had 'Tis the Season and one of those, a minty fragrance. I don't remember. You can go watch my candle haul with Steve from yesterday. I thought about getting another one of these, but I just ended up not doing it. Sometimes I need a little bit of time. You know what I mean? So it's not one of those candles that I was dying to run out and repurchase, but if it shows up again in a year or two, I would probably definitely get another. And I have no reason not to recommend it to you either. It burned great. The strength and throw was good. If you're the type of person that likes a mandel, if you don't mind a cologne fragrance for a home fragrance, this would definitely be a recommendation for you. I even like the inside of this text rectangle here. I'm not even sure if the camera will really pick it up, but there's sort of a dotted, sparkly, textured effect to the inside of that label that I thought looked really nice. I just really enjoyed this. And the vanilla birch candle from this collection is so good. Oh, I'm almost done burning it, so it will probably be in my weekly wax wrap up next week. I also finished up a crushed candy cane from Bath & Body Works. I liked the way that this collection looked, this sort of Christmas time white barn collection. I like the glossy, sort of sheer glass vessel and this large text box that kind of shines and has a bit of an iridescent sheen to it. I thought that this collection looked really, really nice. I really liked crushed candy cane a lot. I'd say that it's my favorite sort of straightforward minty fragrance that Bath & Body Works does. Twisted Peppermint just leans a little bit too sort of sweet and top heavy for me, but I think crushed candy cane is a really nice kind of almost softer minty fragrance. The scent notes on here say crunchy peppermint, white sugar crystals, and frosted mint leaf. And the thing that always just intrigues me about this fragrance is I always think it's really interesting and great when a fragrance is also able to convey texture. Something about this fragrance really does convey like crushed up peppermints, you know? A little bit powdery, which I always find really enjoyable and interesting in here. And the mint note is a little bit softer. It definitely comes across as a peppermint as opposed to a spearmint, but it's a fairly soft peppermint note. And even though white sugar crystals are listed here, it doesn't come across as a super duper sweet peppermint fragrance. Once again, I don't find this nearly as sweet as something like Twisted Peppermint. I really enjoy this one. I pick up a crushed candy cane like every year. This candle burned really nicely too. Thin core wicks on here, burned it all the way down to the bottom. It was a really, really nice clean burn for the most part. That last burn there, we had a little bit of discoloration, particularly around this wick here for whatever reason, but that didn't happen until the very end. This was a really nice clean burn from start to finish. I don't think it ever really gave me any issues with dudding out or sort of underwhelming burns. I think it was fairly consistent from start to finish. Unfortunately, this is a candle that I think has become a little bit weaker over the years. I think that crushed candy cane used to always clock in at a pretty solid like 6.5 or a 7 for strength and throw, but for the last couple years, like 2, 3, 4 years, I feel like it's really gotten quite a bit weaker. In my more open space, this was probably hitting about a 5.5 for strength and throw, so I could definitely tell that it was there and it was pleasant, and it wasn't, it wasn't upsetting me how weak it was by any means, but I kind of missed the crushed candy cane candles that hit a little bit harder. I think this one's gotten a little bit softer. I'd say a 5.5 in my more open space. I don't think I can quite even give it a 6. A 5.5 is okay though. At least you can detect it and you don't need to be hovering right over the candle to be able to smell it. Overall, I enjoyed crushed candy cane. I'm sure that I will get another one at some point next winter. I have no reason not to recommend it to you either. If you like a minty fragrance, it's not really a powerhouse, but it's a nice one. Okay, I also finished up Winter from Bath & Body Works. I thought this candle was beautiful. I really liked this collection actually, and Winter might be one of my favorite like wintertime, Christmas time fragrances from Bath & Body Works. Just a beautiful, starry, sparkly wraparound label on this candle. It looked great when it was burning. It's just, this candle just looked great, like from all 360, like just a stunning wraparound on here. And I like that, it just says Bath & Body Works Winter. Nothing crazy, complicated, no busy text boxes, just a really simplistic and gorgeous design on this collection. The scent notes on Winter say white woods, pine needles, sparkling clementine, and spiced clove. Oh yeah, I really like this one. When I did a Christmas Day candle haul with Steve was not a fan of this fragrance, and I think that it's because of the clove note. The clove note definitely separates this candle from all of the other candles that we're getting this time of year that have that sort of frosted forest, outdoorsy, balsam and pine vibe. The clove note in here really does set this one apart and gives it a bit more of a funky pungency that you don't usually get from your more straightforward balsam and pine candles, but that's actually what I like about this one the most. It's sort of medium to lower, I think, in the fragrance register, although it is quite nicely balanced. So up top, you definitely pick up on that sort of light and sweet clementine citrus note. The majority of this candle is like the pine needles and the clove, and then in the base, you pick up on a little bit of sort of a vague woodsiness as well. Just really, really lovely. So nicely balanced. Such a lovely fragrance. Really, really, really sets the mood for me. I love Winter so much. This might be one of my favorite winter Christmas time candles from Bath & Body Works as well. And this version performed so nicely. I burned it all the way down to the bottom there. A pretty nice clean burn. I don't think this candle was ever giving me issues with dudding out or itty bitty wicks and teeny tiny flames. I'd say it was a pretty nice consistent burn from top to bottom there. In fact, I think I've still got a little bit left. I think I might put this little last centimeter of the wax underneath my candle lamp in the kitchen tonight. Just lovely. Strength and throw on this was pretty good too. I'd say that in my more open space, it probably got to like, ooh, a 6 or a 6.5. Definitely a 7 in the bedroom. This candle definitely is not shy. It has a decent amount of personality. That clove note, you know, balsam and clove notes, I think, are fairly easy to project. And so this one definitely does. I'm pretty happy with it in the more open area and also in a sort of more medium-sized space. Yeah, I love Winter from Bath & Body Works. This will absolutely be a repurchase for me and a recommendation for you, as long as you're okay with that sort of pungent clovey sort of situation. Maybe there's a little bit to this candle that it's a bit of a love it or hate it situation. And once again, I think that it's because of that clove note, but for me, I love it. Oh, I could just sit here and smell it all day long. Okay, I also finished up a candy cane colada from Bath & Body Works, and this came out on Candle Day in 2023. So this was Candle Day 2 years ago. I really loved this fragrance, this candy cane colada. Can't say I'm a big fan of this label, but I think that it suits the vibe and the feel of this candle. We did have colored wax on here. I mean, really, this is like Bath & Body Works finding a way to give us a coconut fragrance when it's the middle of winter, but there was also a mintiness to this fragrance as well that I thought was really interesting and enjoyable. This collection had a bunch of stuff in it that were kind of fruitier fragrances. There was a Top Shelf, Elf, and Cosmopolitan, and I think something else. And so out of all of the candles in this collection, for me, Candy Cane Colada was definitely the standout. We had kind of a fun lid on this candle as well. The scent notes on here just say, Santa is out of office taking a much needed vacation from the North Pole. I'd say that the most prominent scent note in here is the pineapple and the coconut. So since we don't get real scent notes, if I had to guess the scent notes, I would say freshly muddled mint, bright squeezed pineapple juice, and creamy coconut syrup. That's how you make a candy cane colada, guys. Yeah, and it's got a really, the pineapple note is on top, and it's a fairly bright, juicy, sweet pineapple note, but then you have a nice sort of rich, creamy coconut in the middle of the fragrance and a mint on the base of it, and it's not like a really super sweet candied peppermint mint note. It's like a fairly authentic, like green, minty, leafy mint note in the base here. So really nicely balanced, really interesting. I'm happy actually to have had a coconut candle in the middle of winter that kind of felt seasonally appropriate somehow at the same time. And it's that mintiness, right? Really kind of interesting. I would keep hoping that they're gonna bring this fragrance back at Christmas time, but they haven't. And this was my last one, you guys. My last candy cane colada. I really think that they should bring this back. From what I saw, if my memory serves me correctly, when this came out on Candle Day a couple years ago, this was the first one from the collection that disappeared. Bring back Candy Cane Colada, Bath & Body Works. Yeah, I like this one a lot. I burned it all the way down till there was nothing left. Just a little bit of swirliness and murkiness right at the end there, just on the last burn. For the most part, it was a really nice, clean burn. As far as strength and throw goes, in my more open space, it was definitely hitting like a 6 for sure. Never put this in the bedroom. In the bedroom, it would probably get up to like a 6.5 or a 7, but I liked it in my more open area. It was consistently like a 6, so yeah, no complaints about Candy Cane Colada from Bath & Body Works. I'll absolutely repurchase that one if it does come out again, and I'll recommend it to you as well if we ever see it back in stores. Okay, next up, I also finished Cinnamon Spiced Vanilla from Bath and Body Works from the sort of newly revamped White Barn core line. This is the new White Barn line that we're seeing on the shelves like all year long. And I thought it was interesting that they added this candle into that collection, perhaps instead of just the regular like vanilla bean candle. However, ever since they've taken the vanilla bean candle out of the White Barn core line, they've been giving it to us in a lot of other collections. I think we've seen vanilla bean pop up like 3 or 4 times since they took it out of that line. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, we even saw a brand new version come out for Candle Day. Now, cinnamon spiced vanilla is probably my favorite sort of more cinnamon forward fragrance from Bath and Body Works. I'm not big on cinnamon fragrances, but for some reason in this one, it does it for me. I believe that cinnamon spiced vanilla is a repackage of a candle that used to be called like sugared cinnamon donuts. I think that it was a donut candle back in the day, and then they tried to like class up the joint a bit, and they had this out in the neutrals line for quite a while as cinnamon spiced vanilla, and now we're getting it in the White Barn core line. The scent notes are fresh ground cinnamon, sugar crystals, and Tahitian vanilla bean. And yeah, it absolutely smells like those like sugared and cinnamon mini donuts that you get from like the fairgrounds at like a carnival or at Stampede or at something like that. Those donuts fresh out of the fryer and then tossed with a whole bunch of cinnamon sugar. That's absolutely what comes to mind here. But it's not super, super sweet, which I really appreciate. The cinnamon note in here doesn't come across as a red hot cinnamon at all. It's not really super sharp or assaulting. It's actually kind of a nice sort of dusty cinnamon fragrance. And there is also a nice sort of smooth vanilla note in here as well, which I really like. I think it's a nicely balanced fragrance. I think that you could call this fragrance a whole bunch of different things, you know? Yeah, but I really, really like it. It's sort of medium in range as far as a fragrance goes, but it's got a nice sort of balance to it. It's not a super complicated or complex fragrance by any means, but I think that it's nicely executed. And I also think that it's a fragrance that could appeal to people that like gourmand fragrances, but it's also a fragrance that could just appeal to people that like a nicely executed sort of cinnamon spiced fragrance. And the vanilla in here is really what saves it for me. It does have a really, really nice, like rich vanilla bean note. Yeah, I really like cinnamon spiced vanilla. This candle performed okay. I burned it all the way down to the bottom there, and as you can see, that wax is a little bit discolored, and that didn't happen right at the very end. As I've mentioned, it did with some of these other candles. I'd say that the wax started getting discolored around this point here, and in fact, you can actually see a line up top right there where the dirtiness of the wax was starting to leave a little bit of a mark around the inside of the jar. I never let this candle burn for longer than 3 hours. I'm always trimming my wicks, so it always does surprise me when a candle ends up getting that dirty at about this point here. However, I never really saw it like billowing soot or getting super messy. The fragrance never seemed to be compromised or anything like that, so it really wasn't the end of the world. I have had stronger versions of this candle before though. In fact, I think when it came out in the neutrals packaging, I think it started coming out in the neutrals packaging maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, and I felt like it was a fair bit stronger when it was in that packaging than this version was. I feel like this might have been the lightest iteration of this fragrance that I've burned so far. In my more open space, it was probably getting getting to like a 5, maybe a 5.5. In the bedroom, it was maybe just touching that 6 mark. I feel like when I burned this candle in the neutrals line, it was easily getting to like a 6 in my more open space and a 7 in the bedroom. So I do feel like this is another one of those Bath and Body Works candles that's just gotten a little bit weaker over time, but hey, what can you do? All right, I also finished up a peppermint sugar cookie from Bath and Body Works. I love this fragrance. This is probably my favorite like bakery fragrance that we get in Christmas time from Bath and Body Works, peppermint sugar cookie. And this isn't the version that came out this year, obviously. This is the version that came out in, where is my little mark here? Oh, this came out in 2023. Huh, I would have thought that this was last year's version, but it's not. This is a 2023 version. That's interesting. Anyways, I thought it was a fairly nice candle. Not like any groundbreaking packaging happening here, but it was nice enough. We did have kind of a fun lid on top of her there. And the scent notes on peppermint sugar cookies say crushed peppermint, vanilla extract, creamy butter, and soft sugar cookies. Oh yeah, I love this one. I've liked this candle for a really long time. Does anyone know in the comment section below? Let me know. How long has this candle been coming out for? Because I really don't remember a time when I didn't love peppermint sugar cookie from Bath and Body Works. I get one of these every Christmas. I feel like a couple years ago, maybe like 4-5 years ago, there was a Christmas where we didn't get peppermint sugar cookie, and I really felt it in my heart and in my soul. That was not my merriest Christmas ever. And it's funny because, you know, you guys know I don't usually tend to gravitate towards like bakery fragrances that much, especially not like fruity bakery fragrances, but this just smells like a really great peppermint sugar cookie. It's got a really nice sort of fresh minty note on top of it, and then a sort of starchy bakery vanilla cookie gourmand is like the majority of this fragrance, and a nice smooth vanilla bean in the base. And this really does a great job for me as not coming across as like too bakery forward. You know, there definitely is that sort of cookie bakery component to this fragrance, but it doesn't smell like one of those super like dessert forward fragrances that I'm not always such a big fan of. And something about the balance between the starchiness and the peppermint and the vanilla, I think it's just balanced out really nicely and makes for an excellent fragrance. And this candle, I feel like almost always performs pretty nicely. I burned this one all the way down until there was hardly anything left. There's a little bit of discoloration with the rest of this wax in here, but it wasn't that bad by any means. It wasn't a dirty burn, and I didn't notice the wax really getting discolored when it was melted. So I'd say overall it was a really nice clean burn. Never gave me any issues with dudding out or itty bitty wicks and teeny tiny flames. It was a pretty consistent burn from top to bottom. I'd say that the strength and throw in my more open space was easily getting up to like a 6. You know, maybe even a 6.5. I found this really quite noticeable. Never put this candle in the bedroom, not really a bedroom fragrance for me, but I was really happy with how it was performing in my more open space. So yeah, I was happy with this version of peppermint sugar cookie. I never burned or picked up peppermint sugar cookie this year, like the new version that looks like this. I never did get that candle because I think I still have a couple more of these in my stash. So I'm all stocked up. Like I said, we went for that one Christmas where it didn't come out here in Canada. So I had to run out and get myself quite a few. I think I've still got like 2 of those ones left in my stash. All right, moving on to some Goose Creek stuff. I finished up some really good Goose Creek stuff this week. I loved this candle. This one is Christmas Magic. And I do love an outdoors Christmas tree moment in the wintertime. I like the wraparound on this candle quite a bit. It's really quite lovely. And look at Goose Creek doing such a good job of blending their seam on the back of this fragrance. Wow. Credit where credit is due. They really, really blended that seam nicely on this wraparound. Well done, Goose Creek. I mean, that really does look like a holly, jolly, and festive Christmas tree up in there. I really liked Christmas magic, you guys. I enjoyed this candle tremendously. The scent notes on here are sweet peppermint, creamy vanilla, and white woods. I feel like my scent preferences are really on display here with this week's particular selection of candles. Yeah, sweet peppermint, creamy vanilla, and white woods. Not a super like innovative, complicated fragrance, but just really nicely executed and really, really well balanced. There's a really lovely peppermint note in the top of this fragrance. The fragrance has like kind of this sort of airy, outdoorsy quality as well. It almost makes me wonder if there isn't just a little touch of something like a little touch of a eucalyptus or maybe a little touch of juniper or something in here. But what we get on the list is just peppermint, vanilla, and woods, and I definitely pick up on all three of those things, with the peppermint being in the top of this fragrance. And then I'd actually say that the majority of this fragrance here is a really smooth and creamy vanilla, but it's balanced quite nicely with that peppermint on top and then a nice sort of rich woodsiness in the base of the fragrance. I'd say the woodsiness is quite vague. I can't specifically pick out if we're getting like a cedar or a mahogany in here. It is kind of a vague woodsy note, and it is really kind of like in the bottom and a bit in the background, but it's really lovely. And the peppermint really comes forward quite a bit as well. I thought that this candle smelled even better when it was burning. This one really did kind of open up quite a bit for me when it was burning as opposed to on cold. The richness of the vanilla and the woodsiness, I think, really came across a lot more when this candle was burning. When you smell it on cold, you're picking up mostly on that peppermint, and the peppermint seems to be overwhelming what else is happening in this fragrance. But when it's actually burning, you really get that rich vanilla note and like a deep, nice woodsy note as well. I absolutely loved Christmas Magic. This candle burned really nicely too. I burned it all the way down until I could see the wick nickels. The wax did get a little bit darker towards the end there, but nothing terrible. I never really saw this candle sooting or anything like that, but I do limit my Goose Creek burn times to like 2 hours usually. I'd say like 2.5 hours is the absolute max that I let a Goose Creek candle burn for, and you've really got to trim those wicks down in between lighting it. But yeah, for the most part, it was a really nice, clean fragrance. Never dudded out, never gave me teeny flames, and in fact, it actually burned quite nice and strong. It would pool out in no time. This was one of those Goose Creek candles. I definitely think it was like 2 hour maximums for this one, but I don't really have a problem with that because in about 15 to 20 minutes, it would be pooled out and already projecting fragrance. I'd say that this was a 7 quite easily in my more open space for strength and throw, especially like the more deep burns in the middle of the candle were easily hitting a 7 in my more open area. So I was really happy with the way Christmas Magic performed. I really, really, really liked that candle. And I also finished up a red velvet cupcake from Goose Creek. I just love red velvet cake, you guys. It's gotta be one of my favorite kinds of cake. It's that cream cheese frosting. If any of you guys have ever seen me talk about pumpkin cinnamon bun from Bath and Body Works, you know how much I get moist for a cream cheese frosting. Anyways, red velvet cupcake was really good. I think I like the packaging on it more last year, but this is pretty nice. It's kind of fun, it's colorful, it's quite literal. We've got a whole bunch of red velvet cupcakes on there, but it was kind of playful and cute, and we had a white lid on this collection. The scent notes on red velvet cupcake are red velvet cake, cream cheese icing, and rich cocoa. And in case anyone out there doesn't know, red velvet cake is really just chocolate cake. It's really just chocolate cake with red food coloring and a cream cheese icing. I mean, put it in my mouth. I like this fragrance because, once again, this is another good example of bakery gourmand fragrances that I like, because there's no sort of fruity or berry component to it. It's quite low in the fragrance register. It's actually quite a deep and rich fragrance, but it does have a nice sort of fluffy texture to it. And in fact, I pick up on both a bit of a fluffy, cakey texture as well as that creamy sort of cream cheese frosting texture. I think this is a really well executed fragrance in terms of a dessert bakery fragrance like this. A nice, rich sort of chocolate going on in there, but it's not too sweet. And that is always, what I come back to, when it comes to sort of bakery gourmand fragrances. I just need them to not be too sweet. And this one isn't. The cream cheese frosting is the sweetest component here, but even that is kind of a rich, smooth, more of a buttermilk cream cheese frosting. And then the chocolate note, I'd say that it's a milk chocolate note, but it's quite deep and rich, and it's not super duper prominent. I think it's got a really nice balance between the scent notes in here, so that chocolate note isn't dominating everything, and it doesn't just come across as a really rich, sweet, chocolatey fragrance. I think it's actually really quite nuanced and well done. Yeah. Oh, I loved this red velvet cupcake. Oh, this is making me want dessert, you guys. I burned this candle all the way down till there was nothing left. A little bit of discoloration right at the very end there, but nothing terrible. This candle burned really nicely from start to finish. Never dudded out, never gave me itty bitty wicks or teeny tiny flames. And I mean, this was easily a 7 for strength and throw. In my more open space, this was very noticeable. I never really had to search for it. It's been a couple of years since we've seen red velvet cake come out from Bath and Body Works. And I think that that's probably for the better, because the last couple of times that I had burned red velvet cake from Bath and Body Works, it was extremely weak. I'd say it was maybe a 4 for strength and throw. So I'm really happy that Goose Creek is giving us a red velvet cupcake that's hitting that 7 mark in a more open space. Oof, can I get an amen up in here? That was a tasty smelling one. Ooh, snowy branches. I really, really loved this candle. I'm liking all of the candles in this collection, actually. Maybe except for that, what was it? Chestnut Firewood, I believe it was called. That was a little bit of an interesting one, but all the other candles in this collection, I love the snowflakes and blankets and the snowball fight. Yeah, anyways, sorry. This is Snowy Branches. Really, really gorgeous wraparound. And seeing this candle in pictures and in videos really doesn't do it justice until you see it in person. It looked gorgeous when it was burning as well. There are sort of really kind of finely done cutouts in this wraparound, as well as these little bits of silver that look kind of like snows falling all over the candle. And it's a really sort of glassy, glossy finish on the wraparound as well, with a white lid. I just thought this collection looked stunning, and Snowy Branches was one of my favorites. The scent notes on here are cool winter pine, snowy balsam branches, and white cedar. Yeah, this is a really woodsy and sort of woodsy chili fragrance. That cool winter pine. I think there's a little bit of bergamot in here. a little bit of an unlisted bergamot that's sort of on top. In the top of this fragrance, there's a little bit of a citrusy pine vibe, which sort of gives it that cooling sort of sensation. Like, because there's nothing actually in these scent notes, pine needles, balsam branches, white cedar. There's nothing actually in here that would be giving me that sort of chilled vibe. I think there's a little bit of an unlisted bergamot in the top here, but it's quite a bright, fresh bergamot, and it's not like super juicy. It's just got that sort of like a dried citrus, just a very vague sort of dried citrus and pine note in the top of this fragrance. Yeah, and that gives it that sort of cooling effect. And then there's a significant amount of balsam in here and also that cedarwood note in the base of it. And it is kind of one of those sort of sharper, like very woodsy cedar notes as well. Yeah. So you've got that sort of pine and citrus on top, and then the majority, like the main body of this fragrance, is a nice balsam note. Very different though than something like fresh balsam from Bath and Body Works. It's also very different from like balsam and cedar from Yankee Candle. Like this is actually a fairly unique balsam and cedar fragrance, which I think is a really good thing, right? Because we get a lot of those fragrances from candle companies right now. And this has a bit of a unique twist to it, and it's because of that sort of mixture of maybe something a little citrusy and the pine needles in the top here. But yeah, expertly balanced, really lovely, really wintry, really outdoorsy. I really enjoyed this fragrance, and we had a beautiful, beautiful colored wax on here, this beautiful green wax. It does look a little bit discolored right now, but for the most part, this is a really nice, clean burning candle from top to bottom. Right at the end here, I'd say that the last, actually, it's not that bad. There's just a little bit of sooting happened with this candle. Nothing terrible, but there were 1 or 2 burns after I had been letting it burn for 2 or 2.5 hours. When I went to go blow it out, I was noticing just a touch of soot coming off of it. And you can see that there are some soot marks around the sides of the jar here. I have a pretty high tolerance for soot. I know that I probably shouldn't, but what's important to me is that I can smell my candles. And even though Goose Creek, I would say that they are a little bit on the dirtier end as far as burning candles go, they almost never fail to deliver on strength and throw. And so it's a bit of a trade-off, right? I'll get my walls washed, every couple of years to help mitigate the sootiness problem. Oh, this was such a good one. Yeah, I'd say that this was a very solid 6.5 or 7 for strength and throw in my more open space. It had a very noticeable presence to it. It wasn't I'd say that a 7 was just perfect for this fragrance as well. I wouldn't have actually wanted it to have been a whole lot stronger, and I wouldn't have wanted it to have been much weaker either. I thought that this just had an absolutely perfect amount of presence to it, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, Snowy Branches. That was a good one. And I had another Goose Creek candle here. This one is Blueberry Lemon Bundt Cake. And I bought this candle when Goose Creek was having a massive clearance sale. I think I got this for $6, $7, $8 Canadian. I bought this candle along with that strawberry jam pie candle that I think I was talking about last week. I liked this one a bit more than I liked that strawberry jam pie. This candle actually didn't come in blue glass. I did that myself because this candle did come to me with a crack in it. It wasn't fully broken or anything, but there was a crack in it that kind of just ran down the side of the jar like that. And so I put it in the freezer and then popped the wax out of it. and sort of stuck it into this leftover kind of blue sheer vessel that I had. And then I peeled the label off of the glass on the old one and I stuck it on here, which as you can see, it's kind of been peeling off because of it. This was a melter fragrance for me in my kitchen. I really do like melting sort of more gourmand fragrances in my kitchen. The scent notes on here are lilac bouquets, dewy greens, and soft spring air. Just kidding. I obviously put this candle into a old Bath and Body Works vessel for fresh cut lilacs. That's so funny. It wasn't until I had read lilac bouquets that I realized what I was doing. So let me tell you what I would say the scent notes on here are. I would say that they are lemon zest, blueberry pie filling, and a flaky pastry crust. And I actually kind of like this one a bit. Not a kind of fragrance that I'm like repurchasing anytime soon, but I enjoyed melting it in my kitchen for a couple of weeks. I think that it does a good balance between the lemon and the blueberry actually. And I'm not usually a big fan of fruity fragrances from Goose Creek. I do not think that fruity fragrances are a big strength for Goose Creek, but for whatever reason, this one works. I think that it does a good job. There's like a lemon, sort of a lemon zest, I'd say, which is probably why I like it so much. It's not a super juicy, bright, citrusy lemon. It's more like a lemon zest or a lemon rind, lemon oil on top. And then a fairly nice blueberry note. And it doesn't smell like canned blueberry pie filling. Like I burned not too long ago, I burned blueberry cheesecake from Goose Creek, and I really thought that candle gave me like blueberry canned, like blueberry pie filling realness. But this actually, it doesn't smell like a fresh blueberry. It smells like a baked blueberry, like a pie blueberry, but it actually smells fairly authentic and nice. And then there's a bit of like a starchy, sweet kind of pie crust situation happening as well. You know, one of those pie crusts that is like sprinkled with sugar afterwards, you know? Yeah, I like this one. I managed to suck just about all of the fragrance out of this wax. I think I had this under the wax melter for quite a while, you know? And it did really well. I'd say that the strength and throw on this was easily like a 7.5 under the heat lamp. Easily a 7.5. It was really, really quite strong to the point where if I left it on when I left my place, when I came home, as I was like approaching the front door, I could smell it already. In fact, I'd say it was probably an 8 under the candle lamp, especially the first couple of melts under the candle lamp. This was definitely getting up to an 8. Not going to be a repurchase for me, I don't think, but I enjoyed experiencing it once. All right, I also finished up, this is super random. I didn't even know, like, I was going back and forth as to whether I even wanted to like bother talking to you guys about these candles, but I figured, hey, why the heck not? They are a Bath and Body Works product that people are usually kind of interested in this time of year. I picked up this set of 3 Bath and Body Works sort of like mini votive candles here. This one is under the Christmas tree, Fireside, and sugared Snickerdoodle, and they came in a box with the 3 candles just sort of lined up like that. I don't know how much it cost originally, but there were a bunch of these left over at semi-annual sale, and they were 75% off. And so each of these little things, I think I got it for like $6 or $7. So each of these little candles only ended up being like, what, $2.25, 50 cents. So I was like, why the heck not? And I figured I'd talk to you about them just really quickly. I feel like we know what most of these fragrances are like. Sugared Snickerdoodle is warm spice, creamy vanilla, and sugared musk. Absolutely smells like a sugared Snickerdoodle, but not one of my favorite cookie fragrances from Bath and Body Works. I mean, obviously, I just talked about Peppermint Sugar Cookie. That probably is my favorite cookie fragrance from Bath and Body Works. Sugared Snickerdoodle is just a little bit too sweet for me, and I think that in the fall, I actually prefer pumpkin Snickerdoodle. And then we had Under the Christmas Tree, which I absolutely love this fragrance. Oh, I love Under the Christmas Tree. It is fir balsam, juniper berries, vanilla eggnog, and sage leaves. Yeah, I'm actually burning two large 3-wick versions of this fragrance right now. And then Fireside. Fireside is a really, really good one. The scent notes on that are smoked cedar, fresh clove bud, and warm embers. I really like this fragrance, but it's been extremely weak for the last little while. Like the last couple 3 wicks that I've picked up for Fireside have been very, very light. But anyways, all of these candles, they burned okay in terms of, you didn't have to keep much of an eye on them. You could let these little votives, you could let them burn for like 3 or 4 hours and they were just fine. And in fact, you did have to let them burn for a fairly long time to get them to pool out properly. And I didn't actually think that these pooled out as quickly as the proper 8-ounce single wicks that we get from Bath and Body Works do. These actually really did take quite a long time to pool out. And as you can see on the inside of the glass there's quite a bit of wax dragging, which actually surprised me a little bit. For such a small candle, the amount of wax sort of left over on the sides of the glass really kind of surprised me. I wouldn't say that they burned great, but they burned okay. I did not burn these candles really to get any fragrance out of them. I just sort of burned them for ambience. I actually was burning the Under the Christmas Tree. I was burning this in my bedroom while I was also burning a 3-wick Under the Christmas Tree. And so maybe it was giving it a little bit of a boost. Fireside, I didn't notice had any fragrance to it. And sugared Snickerdoodle, I mean, I couldn't really notice them at all, to be honest with you. None of them. Even Fireside especially, even if I was kind of hovering my nose over it, I really wasn't getting anything from Fireside whatsoever. So, but I didn't really expect that I would. These are, how many ounces? I think 3.5. Oh, they're 4 ounces. So these are exactly half the size of a single wick candle from Bath and Body Works right now. I wouldn't waste my money on them again, even getting all 3 of them for $6. Although, I mean, they did the job in terms of just creating some nice ambience. What I actually did with the Fireside one is I just put it in a big opaque blue glass vase and sort of had it sitting outside for a little while, just casting a nice glow. I knew that these were not going to be giving me strength and throw, but I was actually surprised at just how little they gave. The one that I'd say that I could smell when I was hovering over it was the Under the Christmas Tree. Sugar Snickerdoodle and Fireside were barely detectable at all. And also, they never dud it out at all, so I'm happy about that. But I'm kind of surprised at the amount of wax kind of left over on the side of the jars there. Just not really a great product in my opinion. But I pick up a lot of little candles like this that are off-brand. I'll pick up little candles like this sometimes from IKEA or the dollar store, not because I want any fragrance from them, just to light up for ambience. And so I think that they actually served their purpose for that really quite nicely. All right, moving on then, I also finished up a wax melt from Goose Creek, and this is Campfire Marshmallow. This is the first time that I had tried Campfire Marshmallow from Goose Creek, and I really, really liked it. I expected this to be pretty much a dupe of Marshmallow Fireside from Bath and Body Works, but it's actually quite different. The scent notes are fluffy marshmallows, vanilla bean, spun sugar, and toasted vanilla cream. It's a little bit of a sharper fragrance than Marshmallow Fireside is from Goose, from Bath and Body Works. This one, I'd say it's got a little bit more of a woodsy component to it and a little bit more of a smokiness as well. It's got a nice sweetness to it. I'd say it's got about the same level of sweetness as Marshmallow Fireside from BBW, but this Campfire Marshmallow, there's a little bit of a sharpness to the smokiness and the woodsiness in here that I think is really interesting. And, you know, it doesn't even list wood or smoke in the scent notes here. And the scent notes are kind of silly because they say fluffy marshmallows, vanilla bean, spun sugar, and toasted vanilla cream. Like, kind of redundant. But I pick up on a little bit of smoke in here, and I really like it. I really do. I actually ordered a ton of wax melts from Goose Creek during on Candle Day yesterday, because Goose Creek had the whole website on sale yesterday, but I wasn't that blown away by the candle sales. Up here in Canada, all of the candles were still running from like $12 to $15, so we weren't really getting that great of a candle sale, but all of the wax melts were down to $2 or $3 Canadian. So I think I ordered about a dozen wax melts from Goose Creek yesterday, and I'm very excited for them to get here because I've been getting really, really good performance out of the wax melts from Goose Creek. I mean, these smell strong. So the way that I melt wax is I actually just put them in an empty, like, 3-wick candle vessel and just put them underneath a heat lamp, because I don't want to sort of add wax warmers to the sort of situation that I've already got going on with candle lamps, candle crocks, candle pedestals. I don't want to be adding wax melters into the mix, so I just put these under a candle lamp, and I really sucked all of the fragrance out of that one. And I actually put this under the candle lamp in my more open space, which I don't use very often, because if I am home, I'm usually burning a candle in my main living area. But I actually put this under a candle lamp in my more open space, and I thought it did okay. Now, I did just rant and rave about how good the performance usually is for wax melts from Goose Creek. I do have to say that this was one of the weaker ones. But by weaker, I mean it was like a 6 or a 6.5. I'd say that all of the wax melts that I've had from Goose Creek so far have easily been in like the 7 to the 9 range. Like, really good strength and throw from their wax melts. And so this was kind of the odd, weaker wax melts. But by weak, I mean a 6.5. That's really, really not weak. I'm just kind of grading on a curve here. Like, this to me was a weak wax melt for a Goose Creek wax melt, if that makes any sense. And I really like the fragrance. And, you know, you can't go into Goose Creek stores where you are probably and smell all of their fragrances. So when I saw that all of their wax melts were on sale, some of them were $2, most of them were $3, I stocked up because now I've got a whole box of wax melts coming my way, and I'm gonna be able to tell, you know, whether or not I want to invest in the 3-wick candle at some point. But yeah, I actually really like this. I do think I'm gonna give the 3-wick candle a try. Probably gonna wait until next fall or Christmas when this comes out in a 3-wick candle. But yeah, this is definitely on my radar to try as a 3-wick candle next year. Okay, whew. That's all I've got for you folks this week in terms of candles. I went through quite a bit. To be honest with you, I was out of town like all of last week. I did have 3 of these candles on the road with me, and I finished them up. But I actually saved quite a few of the candles from my weekly wax wrap up last week so that I could feature them this week. And so that way last week's episode wasn't like 3 hours long. because I had skipped a weekly wax wrap up when I was really sick over the weekend. So I ended up with a big backlog of candles that I wanted to talk to you guys about. And so I kind of split them into two between last week and this week. Whatever, who cares? I'm not going to get into the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City this week. I'm not going to get super into candle company news either, or burning questions. I do have a burning question that I'm going to answer next week, and we'll do a Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and we need to talk about the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills next week as well. But I'm running a little bit short of time today, so I just kind of wanted to do some final Candle Day thoughts for you guys. If you haven't checked it out yet, Steve and I did a really big Candle Day haul yesterday. You can check that video out. I posted it yesterday. We had so much fun. We ended up going to 2 different malls. They were really enforcing the 24 candle limit at the stores that I went to, which I don't really think they've done before. Like, there's always a limit on it, and I think that it usually has been 24, but when the girl saw me coming up to the cash register with my 2 big full bags, she was like, just so you know, there's a 24 candle limit. And I was like, yeah, I have 24 candles here. I actually couldn't get everything that I wanted to get with 24. And so then Steve and I went to a second mall and I got another 24 candles at that location. And this is mostly because I wanted to stock up on my favorites, okay? So I got a lot of Into the Night. I got a lot of Mahogany Coconut. The price point here in Canada was $11.95 for the 3-wick candles. I know in the States it was $9.95. $11.95 still is the lowest price of the year that we get for candles up here in Canada. So it is a really good chance for me to stock up on the stuff that I know I'm gonna like. And so I did end up getting like almost 60 candles, but that's because I got like 4 smoked vanillas. I got 3 Into the Night. I got a couple of those peppermint marshmallows. I got a couple platinums. I got a couple In the Stars. Like, I stocked up on a lot of my favorites, and I'd have to say that for me this year, the winner is smoked vanilla. This is a candle that I'm most excited about out of everything that I purchased yesterday. But anyways, sort of going back to the store experience for a moment, we went on a Saturday, and so it was really packed and it was really busy. The first store that we went to was almost completely sold out of the Gourmand collection with the glazed cherry, butterscotch drizzle, hot fudge drizzle, or whatever. The first store that we went to was almost sold out of those, and I actually really kind of wanted to get them. Even though they weren't my favorite fragrances in the world. You guys know I'll try almost anything once except for savory food fragrances. So I did want to get like the sugared waffle cone, and I actually kind of like the glazed cherries a little bit more than I thought I was going to. And so when we went to the second location, they had everything there, like all of the candles that I was expecting. The most notable ones that I completely pass on was Holla Dill Light. I didn't get that dill pickle candle. Ow! So I didn't get that dill pickle candle. Ow! So I didn't get that dill pickle candle. Ow! That just, it really did smell like a dill pickle candle, and I don't want my house smelling like dill pickles. Chips and salsa, I couldn't do. Pizza and ranch, I just couldn't do. But I did pick up the popcorn and slushy, and I did pick up the coffee and donuts. I thought that they were okay. But the candles that I really was interested in was the stuff like mahogany coconut, smoked vanilla, peppermint marshmallow. What's the other one? The buttermint vanilla cream or something. I like the way that smelled. Snow Day, I think I got like 3 of those. Dark Kiss, Moonlit Path. Just watch my candle haul with Steve from yesterday and you'll get the full scoop. But I say all of that to say it was mostly a stock up event for me, and my stores did let me use my 10 off 40 coupon. So at both of the stores that I went to, it was almost like getting a free candle because they would accept my 10 off 40 coupon. I know that that's been a really big controversy, that like coupons haven't been working for people and they're charging for shipping and handling because you need to use a code to get Candle Day pricing on the website. There seemed to be a lot of controversy around Candle Day this year, and people not being very happy about these things. People not being very happy about having to pay shipping, not being able to use their coupons, etc., etc. I tend to kind of distance myself a little bit from those conversations, to be honest with you, because, you know, we're still getting $11, $12 candles. We're still getting $10 candles if you're in the States, $12 candles if you're in Canada. I don't think that's a terrible price point. It seems to me like a lot of people are really disappointed if they're not able to like rig the system to get all of their candles for like $8.50 a piece. You know what I mean? And like, that's just, to me, like, that's fine. Like, I get the thrill of a really, really good deal and whatnot. But at a certain point here, folks, Bath & Body Works has been getting in a lot of hot water from us fans recently. And some of it, I think, is like very well justified. I've always kind of thought all their body care is trash, to be honest with you. I like hand soaps. I like the body washes. I've always kind of thought their body care was not great products. And so lots of people complaining about the body creams and stuff these days, which really doesn't make a difference to me. But overall, I was pretty happy with this Candle Day. You know, I thought that they actually ended up releasing quite a few candles that I was very interested in. None of them were from those big collections. I ended up liking all of the random stuff. The smoked vanilla and snow day and brown sugar and fig I thought was interesting. Sun-ripened raspberries really smelled quite weak. But anyways, so me and Steve made our way to two stores. We each left with big bags in our hands, but they were definitely enforcing that 24 per customer limit, which honestly, I really think is kind of silly. Because what do? You just go to another store and buy another 24 candles. But I get it. They can't have people coming in with their like tow wagons, you know, buying up their entire like stock of candles, right? So I get it. And you know what? I also get them deciding to charge shipping and handling on Candle Day. And I also get them not wanting us to be able to use their coupons. I almost feel like I'm a little bit on Bath & Body Works' side here. Like, at the end of the day, like, they are kind of a big, mean, ugly corporation, but they do need to be able to make money. And I think that the majority of us, no matter how much we complain or we swear, you know, they've lost us as a customer, they've never lost you as a customer. You see people threatening that all the time. Well, this is the final straw for me. They've lost my business. And then 2 weeks later, they're posting a gigantic body care haul. You know, like, at the end of the day, they do need to be able to turn a profit, and they are a fairly big, well-off corporation, and I hate the fact that they're not doing Black History Month and Gay Pride and blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't think that's cool at all, but at the end of the day, we do want them to be able to be a profitable business so that they can keep doing what they're doing. And let's keep in mind, folks, that, like, we are living in times right now where some very, very successful, long-standing retail giants are tanking and going under, right? Like, we do want Bath & Body Works to be a healthy company that's going to stick around for a really long time. We can bitch and complain as much as we want, and I do talk about this on my channel quite often, that at the end of the day, my favorite candle option for the most part is Bath & Body Works. It doesn't just boil down to the fragrance or the fragrance quality. If we're also talking about accessibility and affordability and an array of selections and being able to actually go into the store, I think a lot of us would be pretty upset if Bath & Body Works actually did just go bankrupt, go under, disappear from existence. So I get it. I get that we all want to be able to get the best deal possible and, the thrill of the hunt and all that stuff. But hey, at the end of the day, like, if you're able to buy a dozen candles on Candle Day, you're doing better than most people are right now in this economy. You know what I mean? So I just try to think of the glass being half full. I'm thankful. I'm happy. I had a fabulous Candle Day. Steve and I spent the whole day together shopping, recording that video, getting a little bit day drunk afterwards. So overall, I had a really fantastic Candle Day, and I hope you guys did too. Let me know in the comments below what you got up to. I'd really love to hear from you guys. Do you also think sun-ripened raspberry smells really, really light? I thought that Neapolitan ice cream candle smelled really light as well. I think smoked vanilla, this is, even though it's my favorite thing that I picked up, it's smelling a little bit lighter than I would like for it to. But I think it's gonna do all right burning. The scent notes on smoked vanilla, by the way, are creamy vanilla, smoked sandalwood, and rich bourbon. You know what it reminds me of tremendously? And they are very similar. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know how much I loved my little black and gray vanilla single wick from Bath & Body Works. Oh my goodness. I love this black and gray single wick vanilla. This came out in a collection that also had like orange blossom, cypress, and what was the other one? Amber. The amber candle was fantastic. And these are very similar, but they're not exactly the same. The scent notes are even similar too. On the single wick vanilla candle, it says rich vanilla, fresh clove, and soft sandalwood. And on smoked vanilla, it says creamy vanilla, smoked sandalwood, and rich bourbon. So this is bourbon, whereas this is clove. And I do actually think that that's correct, because this one is a little bit like smoother. Yeah, they're not exact repackages, but they are extremely close, which I was very happy about, because I love this one. I've only got like 2 of these bad boys left, so I was very happy to be able to stock up on this smoked vanilla. Not my favorite sort of aesthetic here with the really busy and wordy text box, but hey, I guess it's what's on the inside that counts. Anyways, yeah, I'm really happy with how Candle Day went for the most part. I'm really happy with everything that I got. I purchased a couple things that I didn't think I was going to purchase, and I also didn't bother with a couple of things that I thought I was gonna really like. I'm gonna leave it at that for this week. I did get sent a couple of burning questions. I'm going to roll them over to next week's Weekly Wax Wrap-Up. And we're also going to have to do a recap of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City and The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills at the end of the Weekly Wax Wrap-Up next week. So stay tuned for that. I hope you are all doing well, my friends. And I love you for watching today. You can follow me on Instagram at allabootcandles and email your burning questions to allabootcandles@gmail.com. If you could please hit me up with a like, subscribe to my channel, give me some of those hype points, I would really, really appreciate it. And until next time, my dear, gorgeous, and beautiful candle-loving friends, let's burn some candles and bitch about it. Thanks, you guys. Bye for now.